Welcome to the Cool Tools Show. I'm Mark Frauenfelder, Editor-in-Chief of Cool Tools, a website of tool recommendations written by our readers. You can find us at cool-tools.org. I'm joined by my co-host, Kevin Kelly, founder of Cool Tools. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, it's great to be here.
In each episode of the Cool Tools Show, Kevin and I talk to a guest about some of his or her favorite uncommon and uncommonly good tools they think others should know about.
Our guest this week is Lloyd Dangle. Lloyd is a business strategist who works with senior leaders from major companies to help them design their strategies for the future. He works for Amazon Web Services and has led strategy sessions with leaders from over 150 companies in 69 industries. He's unusual for a business strategist in that he's also a professional cartoonist. His comic strip Troubletown ran for decades in the alternative press. He designed the original packaging for Airborne Health Formula, and most famously, he drew a comic strip for the first issue of Wired magazine. Hey, Lloyd, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Hi, Mark. Hi, Kevin. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Yes, we're so delighted to have you join us, and we're very excited by your tool picks.
Cool.
Yeah, we totally are. We're fans of your cartoons. I've been reading your work for many, many years, if not decades. And so it's great to talk to you. Why don't you tell us about the first one, the Magic Grid Board?
Okay, so Magic Grid Board is a surface that is comes in rolls, and it is a dry erase marker surface that comes in rolls that are in segments that are perforated, and each segment is 2 feet by 3 feet, and the rolls are 25 feet, or 26 feet, I guess. And it's the ultimate tool that is kind of a cross between a Post-it and a whiteboard. So I can walk around with one of these rolls and go into a meeting and roll it out on the wall in 2 seconds, and I've got a whiteboard. And it accepts permanent markers as well as dry erase markers. So I can draw some stuff ahead of time and roll it up and carry it into a room and slap it up on the wall, and I'm ready to capture data on the wall immediately. And I do this in my strategy work all the time. And in fact, in my team, we will build out a whole room with foam core walls, and then we'll cover the entire room in this stuff so that the entire place is a whiteboard. And then we lead groups of business leaders through a series of conversations, and we capture it all in colorful pictures. So I live with this stuff. I love it. I use it every day, and at least in the pre-COVID times, I did. And I'm getting excited about getting back into a room and slapping some of that stuff on the wall.
So is the idea that when you're done with that session or that day, do you roll it back up and reuse it, or is it something that you, for most practical purposes, is a one-time use?
Well, we take pictures of everything and then clean up the pictures and provide those to the people that I'm working with. But if you're drawing on it with dry erase marker, once you take it down, all that stuff will get scratched up and messed up. So you have to throw it away. But what's great about it is it's erasable, and then also the little chunks tear off and you can move them around. And if you run out of space, you just tear off another piece and create more whiteboard space. So that's what I mean. It's super flexible. So wherever the conversation is going and wherever the thinking is going, you're totally able to flex and change it.
So the idea is that you kind of cover the walls with foam boards, which are 2 by 3 feet or something.
I use 4 by 8 feet.
Okay.
Really, the tall way.
Right.
And so I make sort of floor to ceiling whiteboards.
Okay, and then you cover it with this film or this sheet, and then instead of writing on the foam core boards itself, which cannot be erased. Is that the idea?
Right.
Okay.
And I forgot to mention that it's electrostatic, so it just clings to the wall and requires no adhesive or anything. And then if you grab a piece of it, you can just slide it across the wall. So oftentimes, we'll be having a conversation and it's taking up more space than I planned for. So I'm able to just slide it over, add some more over here. And so it's a super flexible tool.
Great. Okay, cool.
Sounds super useful. It's $50 for a one sheet, is it? A 3 foot by
One roll.
4 foot sheet?
No, that's for one
one
roll that
roll.
has 25 sheets.
Oh, wow. That's a good price.
It seems like it's sort of dynamically priced too, because sometimes it's 50 and sometimes it's 20. It's like always changing.
On demand.
Cool. So you are a cartoonist, like we said, and so you do a lot of lettering, and you have a cool tool that you want to talk about that involves handwritten fonts.
Yeah, so there's we were talking about how I would be drawing in a room on this whiteboard material as a strategist, and I like handwritten text because it feels, human, and it sort of gives people the idea that they're able to join in. It's not as set in stone as typography. But there are times when, it's better to have something that's a font. You put it into a document, or like one time I was asked to hand letter an entire legal disclaimer on a video that I was working on. And I was like, really, we should use a font for this because the font will make it a little more regular and easier to read as a block of text. Handwritten lettering doesn't work so great when you get past a certain number of lines.
Yeah.
So having a font that's made from your handwriting gives you the best of both worlds. And what's super cool about this calligrapher website, which is a web-based tool for designing a font, is that it allows you to add a certain level of randomization of the characters. So when you look at a paragraph that's this handwritten font, it has enough variation that it still looks handwritten, even though it's operating as a font and you type it in.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I have a font made from my handwriting from some app in the past, but it was very regular, meaning that the E was always going to look exactly like it. You're saying this one will vary the
Yeah, you would make 4 or 5 E's, and then it will drop them in. So there's a subscription version and there's a free version. I think you have to go up to the subscription version to get that randomizing feature.
Okay.
But for me, that's what really makes it great.
Uh-huh.
And the other thing is
How much
that
do you charge?
just say that it also has this way of micro adjusting the spacing,
The kerning?
the kerning, and the kerning, and I guess you can always change. Well, you can also the kerning, exactly. It's been a while since I worked at a magazine, so I forgot what that's called. But yeah, and so your font is kind of like always live, where you can go back into it and work on it. But then you output it, and it has all of that spacing and kerning and all the micro adjustments that you made.
I see.
So super cool.
I'm just trying to see if the pricing. So I'm at the website. Looks like it's I have per month. I'm not sure why you'd want to have it per month.
Well, so when you start working on a font, it might take you a week or so to really get it locked in the way you like it. So it gives you a certain amount of time to be there working on that. And then maybe after a while you've made all the fonts you need and you're done for now. I found that it worked great for me to have it for 3 months, I think. And then they let you know when your subscription is running out and you can re-up it.
Okay. That sounds good. So you don't get to use the fonts anymore if you stop paying?
No, you get to keep the fonts. The fonts,
okay.
once you download them, they are the true type fonts and open type fonts. So you just install them in your system, and you own them.
Okay, so I'm looking here,
Okay.
just a couple more details. You can use it for free, and you have a maximum of 2 variants for the character randomization with the free version, and no ligatures, meaning you can't really adjust spacing. So basically, you can't adjust the kerning. If you pay for the pro version, you can have like 15 different variations of the fonts. You have more control of the kerning. So there is a free version, and then there's a pro version. That looks great. It's cool. I think everybody should have a font of their own handwriting.
I do
Yeah,
too. I like that idea. I have never done that, but I think I should give that a try.
Yeah,
you'll love it. It's fun. And it's fun making them
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
it seems fun. Tell us about your empathy map. This is something that you created, I think.
So this is not, I didn't make this up. This actually comes from a man named Scott Matthews who has a company called Tremendousness, and it's quite widely used. And it's a tool that doesn't really require anything except paper and a pen. And but I gave you a template that also is kind of a way of cheating. Um,
Mhm.
and the great thing about this, it's a thinking tool and it's an exercise, and it really is like a magic trick. It will transform a person, like if you're working with an individual or working with a group, it will transform their thinking from judgment to empathy, and it takes about 15 minutes to a half an hour, and super powerful. So I can quickly describe it. So
Yeah.
like imagine you're thinking of someone that you're working with or someone that you're dealing with in your life who's just driving you nuts, and they are somehow behaving in some way that's just not working. Maybe you even have a sort of an adversarial relationship and you can't understand why. So I love to use the empathy map in this kind of a situation. So what you would do first is you need 2 pieces of paper for this version. So for the first piece of paper, you would sit down with your team or whatever, and you would write out all the things you're feeling about this character, and you sort of think of them as a persona. Like, what are all the things that they're doing that's driving you nuts? What is everything that's bugging you about them? And you capture all that stuff until you run out of steam, and then you take that piece of paper and you hide it somewhere. On the second piece of paper, you'll draw your empathy map. So the map, you start out by drawing a circle in the center, like a kind of a small circle. That's going to be the head of the person that you're going to be exploring and thinking deeply about. Then you draw 2 diagonal lines across the paper and stop when you get to the little head in the middle. So you end up with a giant X on your paper, a little circle in the middle, and the X breaks up the space into like 5 spaces, or actually 4 areas that you're going to enter some information into. So now you have that circle. That's going to be your character. So think of them as if it's a silhouette and they're facing to the right. So you put a little eye on it, put a little nose like a nub on the right side, draw a little mouth, and then maybe draw an ear on the side, and then give that little character a name. And think about, like, do they have some distinguishing characteristics? Maybe they have a bow tie, or maybe a goatee, or a special hat, or a special hairstyle, and just quickly just draw that on. So now you have your character, and you ask the group to just take a deep breath and think about that character, name the character, maybe it's Frank, and then think about, like, okay, what is the situation that character is in? Maybe they're on a deadline, or maybe it's performance review time, or maybe they're in some kind of a stressful situation. So spend a minute thinking about that character. Now you have those 4 segments around them. One of them is right in front of this person's face. So you will be asking them, what is this person seeing in their environment? What are the things that they see that influence them? Who do they see? What are the friends that they see? And then you brainstorm that and just think of everything in that person's vision, or in front of that person's face.
And this is just an imaginary person. So you're you're making up an imaginary person and you're just trying to be empathetic for that imaginary person. Is that right?
Yeah, based on that character that you're trying to understand better. Like, a lot of times people use these to understand a fictional character of
Right.
a fictional customer in a certain demographic.
Uh-huh.
But in this case, you'd be thinking about someone who's giving you trouble.
So it's
And
not an imaginary character in this case. You're actually trying to imagine that person.
well, like it could be a role. Like, say, I work with account executives all the time, and the account executives are hard for me to understand because they don't behave the way I sort of imagine they should. So you'd give them, so you make sort of like a a, um, a character that is based on maybe two or three people, like a type of a character.
All right. Okay.
Or you could do it on a specific person, but it might be kind of mean.
All right. Okay. All right. So that's what you would call an empathy map worksheet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you start with seeing, then you do thinking and feeling,
Uh-huh.
then you do hearing. You're working around that map in counterclockwise, and then you do what are they saying, and then what are they doing, and those two share that bottom section.
Okay.
And it takes about a half hour, and then when you get to the end of it, maybe you take a moment to discuss, like how might we approach this person now based on what we've just the conversation we've just had.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
then after you've done that and you've had some time to reflect on it, if you go back and get that original paper that you wrote where you wrote down sort of more of your judgments,
Mm-hmm.
you'll find that now you're in quite a different mind space.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good. And so you kind of as a corollary recommendation, Game Storming by Dave Gray, Sonny Brown, James Makunufu. It is a book of thinking exercises.
So this is one of my favorite books of like group exercises that you would do, thinking exercises. And the empathy map is on page 65 of this book. But I love this book for a lot of reasons, so I would definitely recommend it, and I recommend that you try some of the exercises.
What do you recommend it for? What's the use?
So anytime, so it's the subtitle is a playbook for innovators, rule breakers, and change makers. So when so you can pick different exercises in this book to accomplish different group objectives around strategy, and thinking bigger together, and like approaching different kinds of problems as small groups, and sort of brainstorming and opening up thought.
Okay. So it's a collaboration, assisting in collaboration.
Exactly.
Okay.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to get that book.
Yeah.
It has some great illustrations in it also about the nature of conversations, how when you're opening a conversation and you're diverging, and then when you're closing a conversation and you're converging. And I like the way they write about it and think about it, and it's influenced me quite a bit over the years.
Fantastic.
What a great pick. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So let's see. Okay. You have a fourth tool for us that you'd like to recommend.
Now, this tool is also about strategy, but it is the strategy of how you cook a fillet of fish in a pan and move it to a plate without it falling apart. Because that's one of the banes of my existence.
Oh, yes? Well, you have a really nice life if that's the worst problem you have.
Well, I love to cook, and I love to make fish, and I usually will like make kind of a salsa that I put on top of fish, and cut up some herbs and stuff and onions and make something nice. And it just and a fish is nice and friendly when it's raw. It's kind of rubbery, and you could use any kind of spatula, like the spatula that you would use to flip a hamburger. But after it gets cooked, it loses all of its structural integrity.
Right.
So there is a kind of a spatula called a fish spatula, which is also, I understand, called an offset slotted spatula, which will allow you to make that maneuver beautifully, and it lands on the plate, and it keeps everything together, and it looks beautiful. And it's an odd spatula because it's got more space in it than it does have spatula. So
Right.
you know what I'm talking
There's
about.
a lot of negative space in it. There's
Yeah, exactly. A lot of negative space, a lot of air, and
a
not
lot
that
of
much
air.
spatula.
Is there are a number of different models and makes. Does that matter? Is this the Argus, the
So I, w-
the best of them, or do you think there's not that much difference?
I will admit that I have like the $6 one, but I picked the $19 one for your show
Yeah.
because I figure your listeners are kind of high
We're
rollers.
classy.
Classy, very classy. But I think the point of it is that it's the weird thing about it is it's the space, the negative space, and the spindly kind of it's kind of like an elongated racket.
Yeah.
And it's about 6 inches long, the spatula part of it, whereas your normal hamburger flipping spatula is about 4 inches long. And it allows that delicate, unstructured material to like sort of bend and sway a bit with it. And so it's really an interesting technology.
Yeah, it may be the case where maybe the cheaper the tool is, maybe it's the better because it has more flexibility. I don't really know. I do know that another Cool Tool guest, Dan Pink, nominated this as his favorite tool.
Oh, I love Dan
That's
Pink.
right.
Right. So he was saying the fish spatula. You've got to know about this. This is life-changing.
I thought I was going to have one that you didn't already have, which this is disappointing because I thought this was weird enough that I would be the only one. But I'm glad to know that Dan and I are in the same. That we share this.
Yeah, exactly. These are wonderful. Can you tell us about what you're working on these days?
So I am working on a lot of stuff that I'm under NDA that I can't talk about, unfortunately, but it's fascinating. And I am working on a project. I did a project for my son. He graduated from high school last year, and he's waiting to go to college, and he's doing college from his bedroom upstairs. And I made him a nice little book, sort of sketches and pictures and stuff to remind him of his time with me the first 18 years. And it got me thinking because I have about 100 sketchbooks literally that I've filled up over the years because I always carry one with me. And I'm always making fun of people and drawing insulting caricatures and just like filling it up with sort of non sequiturs. And as I was looking through some of these sketchbooks, I thought, well, now's the time. I'm going to collect these into a book of probably be about 600 pages of just weird stuff that I've drawn over the years.
Wow. Are you going to self-publish it or try to find a publisher?
My plan is to self-publish.
Do you know about KDP?
I do know about KDP. In fact, I learned about it on Cool Tools.
Okay.
So.
because my assistant, Claudia, published a 600-page book of her father-in-law who just died recently. He was a tremendous Goodreads book reviewer. And she went through and took his 800 best book reviews and made a 600-page book that was just fantastic. Well made. It just looks great. It's as nice an artifact as any book that you'd buy in a bookstore. And, she made maybe 10 of them. I'm not sure how many.
And so is it on demand where someone else can order one and it just they ship it out?
Yep.
Excellent.
Yep. And it looks really nice. It's beautifully done, has illustrations. And so I highly recommend that as one route, and you can do Kickstarters and anything else you want around it to fund it or publicize it. But it is a really convenient way to get something made.
Thank you for that.
I look forward. I want one. So just let us know.
Me too, Lloyd.
Oh, I'll definitely let you know about it.
And I have a question. You've been drawing, sketching, as you say, for 25 plus years. You reminded me that you did the cartoons in the very first Wired. Has your process of drawing changed very much in those 25 years? Are you still using pen and paper? Have you gone onto the tablet? Are you, Have you changed the pen? I don't know.
You know, actually I have. When I used to do Troubletown, I would draw it with a rapidograph pen, which used to be my favorite thing in the world. And I would also use I would use sable brushes, like watercolor brushes to get that kind of brushy effect. And now I like Pitt artist pens because they're a brush pen that is just really nice and it's like easy to use, and I love those. So I still
What is
draw.
it called? Called
It's
what?
it's a Faber-Castell Pitt
Okay.
artist's pen, and they come in a lot of different tips, but the brush pen is my favorite. It's kind of like a springy little brush, and it's the ink is permanent and acid free and works great. So I carry a sketchbook around with me. That's a paper sketchbook, but I do love to draw on an iPad with the Apple Pencil and in the program Procreate. That has millions of great brushes, and it just is a fantastic application. But since COVID hit, I also have a 23-inch Wacom Cintiq tablet that I have set up on this ergonomic stand, which is adjustable, and it's on a standing desk that is on wheels. And I love that too. And I draw in Photoshop using all the different all the different Adobe brushes and the Wacom Cintiq. So I'm doing both digital and analog.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's really great. So Procreate on the iPad is good enough for you.
I love it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Also,
sounds great.
you can also record all your strokes, so you can make a little movie out of the drawings that you do. That's also really
wow.
fantastic.
Like a time lapse.
Exactly. Yeah. It just draws itself.
Cool. I like that. I love that. Well,
That
thank you.
sounds so cool.
This is really great.
Great. Well, I hope you guys will try some of those things because I think you'll enjoy it.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds good. Lloyd, thank you so much. This has been great talking to you, finding out about the tools that you use, catching up with you. Wow, that first issue of Wired, that was a long 1993. So we've, yeah.
I still remember it very vividly. I'm walking in the office there.
Yeah, well, that first issue, we were a ragtag band of, people with very little future in front of us. It was the likelihood of us succeeding was so slim that it was a lot of fun because we were, we had nothing to lose. So that's always a great place to be.
And a great vision.
Yeah.
And a great vision.
Yeah. Well, thanks. And I'm glad to hear that you're still drawing because that's the most important thing.
Every day.
Wow, that's impressive too.
It's an integral part of everything I do, so it's right there in front.
Well, okay.
One quick question before we go. Do you get a free lifetime supply of Airborne?
Well, I've probably had enough for my lifetime, so I don't still have the free lifetime supply, but
what's Airborne?
Airborne is a natural vitamin product that started in the 90s, and I did the first packaging for them. The original packaging.
I see. Okay.
And they've since kind of moved away from the packaging that I did, but for many years, and I was right there at the beginning where they went from like 0 in sales to 100 million in sales in about 2 years. So it was a wild ride for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we've gone through many containers of Airborne ourselves. My wife loved that stuff.
Yeah, Airborne is
invented by a school teacher.
It's got some really dedicated supporters.
Okay.
Fans.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Lloyd. Well, great talking to you.
Thank you very much. Great talking to you as well.
Hey everybody, it's your co-host Mark, and I wanted to let you know that we have a lot more going on here in Cool Tools than just this podcast. We have our flagship website where we review a new tool every day. That's at cool-tools.org. We also have 4 different newsletters. We have this podcast. We have a YouTube channel where we review tools. And if you like what you hear and see and read, the best way to help us out is by going to our Patreon page at patreon.com/cooltools and donate at any level you wish. You can even contribute $1 a month, and that would mean a lot to us. The money that you give us will go towards paying for our transcribing costs, editing videos, and editing the podcast. It goes towards paying contributors who write the reviews for us. It goes towards our equipment costs, our hosting costs, and it supports our very small company of 3 people. This week, I wanted to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters who have been giving us at least $2 a month. And if you give us $2 a month, we'll give you a shout out online. And this week, I would like to thank Michael Sakochia, Molly Starr, M. Velderman, Opposable Thumbs, Pamela Cooley, Patrick Weyer, Paul Hosey, Randy Fisher, Stuart Burrows Brand, Synaptic Sam, Therese Schwartz, Tom Hawkins, Tom Markham, What Bear, Javier Pangolin, David Lang, Eric Byers, Sean Hartley, Stephen Powell, Greg Lichtscheit, John Hobson, Adam Bristol, Adam Naher, Anonymous, Bill Kempthorne, Bruce I. Niles, Chris Woodruff, C. Kolos, Daryl Flynn, Egg Fleegoff, Eric Hanschrau, Eric Hoover, Godfrey Saldana, Jay Skiles, John M. Larson, Jude Galligan, Kenneth Gilman, and Lucas Frank. Thank you very much for supporting the show, and we will see you next week.